What if Napoleon Bonaparte had woken up one day and realized, today no one will spoil my plans? Just imagine, no snow in Russia, no treacherous general, no British fleet to spoil the mood. What if everything had gone perfectly for this little Corsican with big ambitions? Would we be sitting over coffee now, speaking French, or maybe wearing all those funny triangular hats? And most importantly, why are we still arguing about him when he has been resting in Paris for 2 centuries? Let's forget for a moment about the reality, where Napoleon often stepped on the rake of his own arrogance. We all know how he lost Waterloo, apparently because someone forgot to tell him that rain and cannons are not very friendly, or how his brilliant march on Moscow ended with the Russian winter giving him a cold shower. But what if fate had decided, okay, Napik, today is your day? What if he had not just won, but turned the whole world upside down and done so in such a way that we could still feel his shadow? This topic is not just a game of what if. It is a chance to look into a history that could have been ours. Imagine a world where France is not just a great power, but the center of everything from politics to fashion. Where Britain might have to learn to pronounce croissant correctly. Or where Russia would be just another item on the list of conquests, not the nut that Napoleon never cracked. The irony is that we love him for his failures as much as for his victories. Because who wouldn't laugh at the way he tried to escape from the Elbe like a bad novel hero? So sit back, grab your coffee, preferably with a croissant to set the mood, and get ready for the journey. We're going to draw a story where Napoleon doesn't just win battles, he wins everything. And believe me, this will be a story you won't be able to put down, if only because we'll add a little humor about his famous hand in his vest. Or was he just warming up there? Let's find out. So, let's imagine the year 1799. Napoleon has just become the first consul of France, and instead of stumbling over his own ambitions, he is moving forward like a real strategist from a Hollywood movie. The first thing that goes differently? The Egyptian campaign of 1798? In reality, British Admiral Nelson defeated the French fleet near the Nile, but in our story, Nelson, let's say, slept through his alarm clock. The French fleet is intact, Egypt is under control, and Napoleon is already dreaming of a canal, yes, the same Suez Canal, but half a century earlier. The irony is that the British still think that the main threat is their weather. Next is Europe. Instead of fighting everyone at once, Napoleon concludes a cunning peace with Austria after Marengo in 1800. In reality, he barely survived the battle. But here everything goes like clockwork. The Austrians surrender, and Emperor Franz II invites him to tea. Napoleon, of course, refuses. He doesn't drink tea, he's French. Instead, he takes on Prussia, but instead of war, he offers an alliance. Let's share Europe together, guys, he says, and the Prussians, who have always dreamed of being cooler than their neighbors, agree. Britain looks on and nervously begins to brew its fifth tea of the day. And now Russia? In the real world, the 1812 campaign was a disaster. Snow, Cossacks, burned Moscow. You know, the typical Russian way. But in our story, Napoleon is preparing. He doesn't march on Moscow in the summer to get stuck in the winter, but starts the campaign in the spring of 1811. And most importantly, he makes a deal with Poland, promising to revive the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth if they cover his flanks. The Russian Tsar Alexander I, who in reality liked to play diplomacy, simply does not have time to react. The French army, warm and well-fed, takes St. Petersburg, and Moscow surrenders without a fight. Napoleon jokes, well, now I have a Dasha on the Neva. Britain is the last nut. In reality, its navy was invincible. But here Napoleon does not repeat the Trafalgar mistake of 1805. He enters into an alliance with Spain, retains their fleet, and together with the French builds an armada that gives the British a light invasion of the islands? Perhaps not immediately, but Britain is forced to sign a peace in 1815, recognizing French hegemony. Napoleon, standing on the shores of the English Channel, throws down, well, gentlemen, maybe you can learn to make a proper baguette. What does all this mean for the world? France becomes not just an empire, but a superpower. Napoleon reforms Europe according to his code. Everything is clear, everything is French. Germany unites earlier, but under the French wing, and Italy becomes a single state before 1820. Technology? Just imagine. The Suez Canal was already in operation in the 1820s. Steam engines appeared faster because Napoleon loves everything new and shiny. Culture, French fashion and cuisine take over the world. The British still grumble, but secretly eat croissants. But there are nuances. Napoleon, though a genius, is not eternal. He ruled until the 1830s, passing the throne to his son, Napoleon II, who grew up in ideal conditions and did not repeat his father's mistakes. Russia, of course, sharpens its teeth for revenge, but France keeps it in check. America, by the way, wins. Without British support, it expands more rapidly to the west, and Napoleon sells it Louisiana cheaply because it is far away anyway. The irony is that the world is becoming more French, but at the same time more connected roads, trade, laws, everything works like clockwork. Would this world be a better place? Who knows? Napoleon would definitely say, of course it would be better, because it's my world. But wouldn't we all get tired of hearing about his greatness? Probably so, but it would be interesting to live in it, if only to see how he quarrels with the cook over bad borscht. And what about the Ottoman Empire? In reality, it was slowly declining, but here Napoleon sees it as a partner. After Egypt, he made an alliance with the Sultan, promising modernization in exchange for trade and peace in the Balkans. The Ottomans, instead of clinging to the past, receive French engineers and cannons, and Istanbul turns into an Eastern Paris. Napoleon, of course, cannot resist a joke. Now I have two cities with good wine and bad traffic, and one more twist, revolutions. In the real world, the 19th century was full of revolts, but here Napoleon is ahead of them. He introduces reforms, not radical, but enough to keep workers and peasants from taking up pitchforks. The French Empire becomes an example. Education for all, roads everywhere, and taxes are tolerable because the army needs to be fed. As a result, the world is not just Francocentric, but stable. It's ironic. Napoleon, who in reality wreaked havoc, becomes a symbol of order here, albeit with a note of, do as I say because I am Napoleon. So what do we have? A world where Napoleon not only won, but made his name synonymous with success. France is the center of everything, Europe is its backyard, and Britain may still be offended, but with a French accent. Russia is grumbling, but keeping quiet, and America is thankful for cheap Louisiana and building its dream. All this sounds like the perfect plan of a little Corsican who once decided that a rake is for weaklings. But let's think about it. If everything went so smoothly, wouldn't we miss something important? The real world is a chaos where Napoleon stumbles, Britain wins at sea, and Russia has the last laugh. Maybe it is these failures that make history so fascinating. In our version, Napoleon is a king without a stain on his uniform, but isn't it boring to live in a world where everything is perfect? Although, let's face it, the idea of drinking coffee in Paris, which rules the world, sounds good. Just imagine, you order a croissant and the waiter whispers, "Thank you, Napoleon, for this." This alternative history shows how fragile everything is in reality. One good day, one missed snowfall, and we are already living in a different world. Maybe we underestimate how accidents shape us, or on the contrary, we overestimate Napoleon, who, by the way, was still hiding his hand in his vest. Apparently, it was his secret plan in case of rain. So what do you think? Did you enjoy thinking about this what if? If so, please like this post. It will be our little salute to Napoleon, who did not lose this time. And subscribe because there are many more stories ahead where we will turn back the clock and ask, what if? Let's figure out together how the fate of the world could have turned out, with humor, coffee, and maybe a couple of croissants. See you in the next story.